My ex-wife grabbed my arm at the wedding reception, her sister's wedding reception, the one I only came to because the family I lost still felt like mine, and said words that stopped my heart. Act like my husband for the next 40 minutes. 40 minutes. I'm her ex-husband. She's the woman who left me 2 years ago without one word of explanation, who signed the divorce papers and walked out of my life like I was nothing. But now her fingers were digging into my arm at this wedding reception like I was the only thing keeping her standing, and her eyes were begging me in a way her mouth never had. I'm the man she threw away. She's the ex-wife who broke me and never said why. So why, at her own sister's wedding reception, in front of her entire family, was she suddenly desperate for me to act like her husband? And what was she so terrified they'd find out in the next 40 minutes? I opened my mouth to ask. She squeezed harder. Please, don't talk. Just walk with me. Now. So I walked. Her hand slid down my arm and found my hand, and the second our fingers laced together, my whole body remembered something my brain had spent 2 years trying to forget. The exact way she fit. She used to hold my hand like that at the movies, in the car, in the hospital waiting room, on the worst night of our lives. My chest went tight. I hated that it still worked. Elena, I said under my breath, smiling for the crowd, because she'd taught me long ago that you smile in a room full of family, whether you mean it or not. What is happening right now? 40 minutes, she whispered back, smiling too, her voice sweet as sugar and shaking underneath. That's all I'm asking. That's not an answer. I know. The band was playing something soft. The reception glowed gold. String lights looped across the ceiling. White flowers on every table. The smell of roasted garlic and candle wax. And her perfume, which was the same perfume, the exact same one, and that nearly undid me right there. 200 people I used to call family were laughing and clinking glasses, and not one of them knew that the couple crossing the floor holding hands had signed papers dissolving their marriage 22 months ago. I only came for Mara. 3 weeks earlier, Elena's little sister had shown up at my apartment door. Little Mara, who used to text me at midnight, asking whether some boy named Kevin was worth it. Except she wasn't little anymore. She stood on my doormat, holding a cream-colored wedding invitation, and looked at me like she was daring me to slam the door. You were my brother before you were her husband, she'd said. The divorce was between you two. It was never between you and me. And it was never, ever between you and Gran. I'd told her Elena wouldn't want me there. Mara had looked down at her shoes, and when she looked back up, her eyes were wet. Gran's dying, Daniel. And that's why I came. Not for Elena. For the tiny woman in the wheelchair at the head table, wrapped in a shawl the color of dried roses, who used to pat the seat beside her and say 4 words that always made me sit down no matter how busy I was. Tell me something true. And now Elena was pulling me straight toward her. Wait, I breathed, planting my feet. Wait. Does Gran know? About us? Elena's smile cracked. Just for a second, like a hairline fracture across glass. No, she said. And she can't. Not tonight. Not ever, if I can help it. Elena, she asked where you were, Daniel. Her voice broke on my name. 10 minutes ago. She grabbed my hand and she asked where my husband was, and I panicked. And I told her you were parking the car. A tear escaped, and she wiped it fast, laughing at herself in that broken way. And then you walked through the door, 40 seconds later, like the universe was playing a joke on me. I stared at her. So please, she said, for her, just for her, be my husband for 40 minutes. Let her have one good night, and then I swear I will never ask you for anything again, as long as I live. And that's the thing that gets me. Even now, telling you this, I should have said no. This woman had ripped my life in half and never told me why. She'd let me believe, for 2 years, that I simply wasn't enough. That one day she woke up and stopped loving me and didn't even respect me enough to explain. I had every right to pull my hand out of hers and walk out of that reception and let her drown. But then I looked past her, and Gran saw me. And her whole face opened up like a window thrown wide on a spring morning, and she lifted one trembling hand off her lap and reached toward me across a room full of 200 people. And I heard her say, in a voice thinned by whatever was eating her from the inside, "There he is. There's my Daniel. 2 years of anger. Gone. Just like that. I crossed that floor so fast I nearly knocked over a waiter. I dropped to one knee beside her wheelchair, so we were eye to eye. The way you do with someone who has gotten small and fragile since the last time you held them. And she took my face in both of her paper-thin hands, and her palms were warm, and she smelled like the peppermints she always kept in her sleeve. "Sit," she said. "Tell me something true." And my throat closed, because the only true thing in my head was, I still love your granddaughter, and I don't even know what I did wrong. So I said the second truest thing. "I missed you, Gran, every single day." "That's true." She smiled like I'd handed her the sun. "I know you did." She turned her head toward Elena, who stood behind me with her hands pressed to her mouth. "See? I told you he'd come. I always told you." Her thumb stroked my cheek. "He always comes back." And behind me, I heard Elena stop breathing. "Now here's what nobody warns you about pretending to still be married to the person you never stopped loving. It's not hard. That's what breaks you. It's the easiest thing in the world." For the next 20 minutes I was her husband again. And my body knew all the old choreography without asking my permission. I pulled out her chair. I knew she'd take a water glass from the person on her left without looking, because she never trusted a stranger to stop pouring in time. When a nosy great-aunt leaned in and asked when we were going to finally give Gran a great-grandbaby, I felt Elena's knee press against mine under the table. Our old signal. "Rescue me." And I smoothly changed the subject like I'd never left her side. We moved together like a machine that had been sitting cold in a garage for 2 years and roared to life on the very first turn of the key. And Gran watched us the whole time, glowing, like a woman who'd placed a bet a long time ago and was finally watching it pay off. For a few minutes, I forgot it wasn't real. For a few minutes, I let myself have it. The warmth of Elena's shoulder against mine. The sound of her laugh. The way the candlelight caught the little gold flecks in her brown eyes. I forgot she'd left me. I forgot I didn't know why. I forgot everything except that I was sitting exactly where I'd spent 2 years aching to sit. And then a shadow fell across the table. A man stood over us. Tall, expensive suit. The kind of easy grin that belongs to someone who has never once walked into a room unsure of whether people would like him. He was holding 2 glasses of champagne, and he set one down in front of Elena like he had every right to. And he looked at our joined hands on the table with something cold moving behind his smile. "Elena," he said smoothly, "you didn't tell me you'd brought a date." I felt her whole body go rigid beside me, and Gran, beaming, oblivious, patted my arm and announced to the entire table in her thin, happy, carrying voice, "Oh, that's not a date, dear. That's Elena's husband." The man's smile froze. Slowly, he turned his head and looked at me, then at Elena, then at our hands. And I watched the math happen behind his eyes, because he was not a stupid man, and I watched him land somewhere very close to the truth. His grin came back, but it had teeth in it now. "Husband," he repeated softly. "That's funny." He pulled out an empty chair, sat down without being asked, and leaned toward Elena with the patience of a man who has just found the loose thread and intends to pull it in front of everyone. "Because I could have sworn, Elena, at your mother's dinner just last month, you told me, and I'm quoting you exactly." He paused. The whole table leaned in. Gran's smile began, for the very first time all night, to flicker. "You told me you weren't married to anyone." The word anyone hung over the table like smoke. Nobody moved. A fork stopped halfway to somebody's mouth. Even the band seemed to fade, though I knew it hadn't. My ears were just roaring too loud to hear it. And I watched Gran's face change. That's the thing I'll never forget. Not the man's cruel little smile. Not Elena going white beside me. It was Gran. The confusion starting to crawl across her soft old features. The way her eyes moved from Elena, to me, to the stranger, to our joined hands, trying to make the pieces fit and finding they wouldn't. "Elena?" Gran said, small, uncertain. A voice I had never once heard her use in 8 years. "What does he mean, sweetheart? What does he mean you're not married?" And I felt Elena die a little beside me. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. 2 years of guarding this secret, of building a wall around it brick by careful brick, and now this smug man in his expensive suit was kicking the whole thing down for sport, and she had no words left to stop him. So I did the only thing I knew how to do, for once in my life, For the first time in maybe 3 years, I did not run out of the room. She was protecting me, I said. Every head turned. Elena's most of all. She looked at me like I'd spoken in a language she didn't know I could speak. I kept my eyes on the man. Grant. I'd heard someone call him Grant. You want the truth? Fine. Here it is. We're separated. It's true. Almost 2 years now. I heard the gasp ripple down the table, felt Gran's hand tighten on my sleeve, and I did not stop. Because if I stopped, I'd lose my nerve. So if Elena told you she wasn't married, she was telling you the truth. That's who she is. She won't lie even when a lie would be easier, even when a lie would save her. So don't you dare sit at this table and try to use her honesty as a weapon against her. Grant's grin wavered. I don't know what you were hoping to walk out of here with tonight, I said, quieter now. But it wasn't going to be her. Trust me. I know exactly how far out of your league she is. I was married to her. For a long moment, nobody breathed. Then Grant stood up. He buttoned his jacket with a sharp little tug, the way men do when they've lost and need to pretend they're leaving because they chose to. He muttered something about getting some air, and he walked away, and the whole table exhaled at once. I turned to Gran, my heart hammering, ready to apologize, ready to explain, ready to catch her the way you catch someone who's just been dropped from a great height. And Gran was laughing, softly, to herself, shaking her head, one hand pressed to her chest. "Oh, Daniel," she said, "you foolish, foolish boy." I blinked. And Gran, I've known for over a year. The table went silent all over again. Elena made a sound, half a word, strangled in her throat. You? What? Gran? You knew? Of course I knew. Gran dabbed at her eyes with the corner of her rose-colored shawl, still shaking her head like we were the two silliest children she'd ever met. Your mother cannot keep a secret to save her life. God love her. She stopped saying his name at Sunday dinner. She took your wedding photo down off the piano and thought I wouldn't notice the clean square in the dust. She reached over and patted Elena's hand. I'm old, my love. Not blind, and not stupid. Then why? Elena's voice cracked wide open. Why did you let me, all night why did you let me do all this? And Gran looked at her, and then at me, and her old eyes were suddenly clear as glass and sharp as a blade. Because I wanted to see, she said, what the two of you would do when you were finally standing in the same room again. Silence. I don't have long, my darlings. We all know it. Nobody will say it, but we all know it. She said it so gently, so without fear, that it hurt worse than if she'd cried. And I could not, I would not, go without understanding what happened to the two of you. Because I was there, Daniel. At your wedding. I saw the way you looked at her. A man does not look at a woman that way, and then simply stop. Her eyes came to rest on me, and they pinned me to my chair. So I decided I would sit here tonight, and I would watch, and I would find out for myself which one of you let go first. I couldn't speak. I looked at Elena, and Elena was staring at the tablecloth, like it might open up and swallow her. It wasn't him, was it? Gran said softly. Elena didn't answer. Elena. Gran's voice, gentle but unmovable. Look at me. It wasn't him who let go. And my ex-wife, the woman who left me, who signed the papers, who walked out of my life without one single word of explanation, put her face in her hands and started to cry. Not pretty crying, not a single tear wiped away for the crowd. The real kind. The kind that shakes your shoulders and steals your breath. The kind she'd never once let me see in all the months our marriage was quietly dying. The kind I'd have given anything to see back then, because at least it would have told me she still felt something, and the whole time I'd thought she felt nothing at all. I need some air, she gasped, and shoved back from the table and fled toward the terrace doors. I sat there frozen, because this wasn't my business anymore. She'd made sure of that. She'd taken away my right to chase after her when she cried. 2 years and a signed decree ago. Gran's hand closed over mine. Go, she said. Gran, I don't, Daniel. Her fingers were shaking, but her grip was iron. In 8 years, I asked you for one thing at a time, and you always gave it to me. So I am asking you for one more. Go after her, not as her husband, not as her ex-husband. Her eyes filled. Go after her as the man who never found out why. So I went. I pushed through the glass doors into the cool blue dark, and the noise of the party dropped away behind me, and there she was. Elena, at the far end of the empty terrace, gripping the stone railing with both hands, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her shoulders shaking, the string lights from inside painting soft gold across her back. The sea was somewhere below us in the dark. I could smell the salt. I could hear the waves breaking against rock, slow and patient, the same sound that had been there long before us, and would be there long after. For a moment, I just stood and looked at her, and 2 years of questions clawed their way up my throat. "Why?" I said. She went still. "That's all I want, Elena. That's all I've wanted for 2 years." My voice didn't sound like mine. "You didn't fight. You didn't scream. You didn't tell me I'd done something wrong so I could try to fix it. You just went cold. Overnight. And then there were papers on the kitchen table, and you wouldn't look at me, and you said it was better this way, and you never, ever told me what I did." I swallowed hard. "Do you know what that does to a person? 2 years of lying awake wondering which part of me was so easy to throw away?" She turned around, and in the gold light I saw her face, wet and open and wrecked, and something in it that I had not expected. Not guilt. Fear. "You didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "Then why?" "Because you would have stayed." The words tore out of her like she'd been holding them underwater for 2 years. "That's why, Daniel. Because I knew you. I knew exactly the kind of man you were. And if I had told you the truth, you would have stayed. And staying would have destroyed your whole life." The waves kept breaking below us. "What truth?" I said. My heart was pounding somewhere up in my ears. "Elena, what truth?" She opened her mouth, and then, from the doorway behind us, a voice called out, panicked, breathless, one of the cousins. "Elena, come quick, it's Gran." We ran. Elena got there first, shoving through the crowd that had gathered around the head table, and I was right behind her, my heart slamming against my ribs. And there was Gran. Not gone, thank God, not gone. Slumped sideways in her wheelchair, her rose-colored shawl slipping off one shoulder, her eyes half open and fluttering. "Gran!" Elena dropped to her knees and grabbed her hands. "Gran! I'm here! I'm here! Look at me! Somebody called an ambulance," a cousin said. "They're coming. They're 2 minutes out." And Gran's eyes found Elena's face, and then found mine, over her shoulder, and the corner of her mouth lifted into the smallest, softest smile. "There you both are," she breathed. "Together. Good. That's good. Don't talk," Elena begged. "Save your strength. Please. Just hush now." Gran's voice was thin as thread, but her eyes were clear. "I'm not scared, my love. I've had a long, beautiful life, but I need you to listen to me, because I don't think I have the time to say it twice." Her gaze slid to me. "Daniel, come here. Kneel down where I can see you." I dropped to my knees beside Elena. "She never told you why she left," Gran whispered. "Did she?" "No," I said. "She never did." "Then I will, because she's too stubborn, and too kind, and she'd carry this to her own grave before mine." Gran drew a slow, rattling breath. 2 years ago, my Elena got sick, Daniel. The floor dropped out from under me. "Elena?" I whispered. "What is she?" "Let her finish," Elena breathed. And she was crying again, and this time she didn't hide it. "There was a lump," Gran said. "In her breast. She found it the same month you got the letter. The big one. The job you'd worked your whole life for. The one across the ocean." Her fingers tightened weakly around mine. "You remember, don't you?" And I did. Oh God, I did. The offer. The dream job. The one I'd chased for 15 years. In another country, a 2-year contract. The chance of a lifetime. I'd turned it down. I'd told Elena I turned it down, because we came first, because I'd never leave her, and she'd smiled, and kissed me, and told me she loved me, and 2 weeks later, she was cold. And a month after that, she was gone. She got her diagnosis, Gran said, on a Tuesday, and she sat in that doctor's office, alone. She made me swear never to tell you she went alone, and she did the math. She knew if you found out she was sick, you would give up everything. The job, the dream, your whole future. You'd spend 2 years watching her lose her hair and get poisoned by the treatment, changing bandages, sleeping in hospital chairs, and she couldn't. Gran's voice broke. She couldn't bear to watch you throw your one great chance in the fire to sit by a bed and maybe still lose her anyway. So she left, I whispered. So she left, Gran said. She pushed you away on purpose. She let you believe she stopped loving you. Because she knew it was the only lie big enough to make a man like you actually go. A tear rolled down into the deep lines of her face. She sent you off to chase your dream, so that if the worst happened, at least one of you would still have a life. She broke your heart to save your future. That was her gift to you, Daniel. The cruelest, most loving thing I have ever seen one person do for another. I turned to Elena. She was kneeling there in her sister's wedding dress reflection of lights, tears streaming, and she couldn't look at me, and I finally understood everything. Every cold word, every unanswered call, the papers on the kitchen table. It's better this way. She hadn't stopped loving me. She'd loved me so much she'd been willing to let me hate her forever. You're okay now? I choked out. Elena, tell me you're okay now. She nodded, sobbing. 2 years clear, she whispered. I'm clear, Daniel. I'm okay. I made it. You went through all of it alone. I had Gran. I had Mom. Her face crumpled. I didn't have you. And every single day I wanted you. Every day of the chemo I'd reach for the phone to call you. And then I'd remember I was the one who told you to go, and I'd put it down, and I'd tell myself it was worth it, that you were out there living, that at least one of us. I never went, I said. She stopped. What? The job, Elena. My voice was shaking so hard I could barely get it out. I never took it. I turned it down before you ever got sick. I turned it down for you, for us, and I never told you because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything. I let out a broken laugh that was mostly a sob. You broke your own heart, and mine, to send me off to a dream I'd already given up. For you. You spent 2 years thinking I was on the other side of the world, chasing my future, and I was 20 minutes across town, alone, in an empty apartment, loving you the whole time. Elena stared at me, and the ambulance lights washed red and blue through the windows, and the paramedics came through the doors, but for one suspended second, the whole world was just the two of us, kneeling on the floor, finally seeing each other clearly for the first time in 2 years. Two people who had each set themselves on fire to keep the other one warm, and never told each other, and lost everything for nothing. For nothing. We could have. Elena couldn't finish it. All this time, we could have. I know, I said. We wasted. I know. I took her face in my hands, the way Gran always took mine. But we're here now. We're both still here. And Gran, being wheeled toward the door on a stretcher, an oxygen mask over her face, lifted one trembling hand and pulled the mask aside, and with the very last of her strength, she said the thing she'd been trying to say all night. Then stop wasting it. Gran didn't die that night. I want you to know that, because I know your heart is in your throat. It was her heart. A warning, the doctors said, not the end. She had 8 more months, and she spent every one of them exactly the way she wanted. Because 11 weeks later, I stood at the front of a small stone chapel by the sea, in the same suit, my hands shaking, and the doors opened, and Elena walked toward me in a dress that wasn't white, because, as she said, we'd already done white once, and this one was for something we'd earned. We didn't rush back into it. I need you to know that too. We went slow. We saw a counselor. We learned the thing that neither of us had ever known how to do, to say the hard, terrifying, true thing out loud, instead of deciding alone in the dark what was best for the other person. We learned that love isn't protecting someone from your pain. Love is trusting them enough to let them carry it with you. And in the front row, in her wheelchair, wrapped in that shawl the color of dried roses, Gran sat with a small, satisfied smile. The smile of a woman who'd made one final bet, and won, and lived just long enough to watch it pay off. When Elena reached me, she took both my hands, the way she used to before the world got complicated. You came back, she whispered. I never went as far as you thought, I said. And from the front row, clear as a bell, not quiet at all, we heard Gran say to the woman beside her, I told you. He always comes back. She held on for 3 more months after the wedding. Long enough to sit in the sun with us on the terrace where it all came out. long enough to hold Elena's hand and tell her she was proud. And when she finally slipped away, she did it in her sleep, in a good place, in a warm bed, the one I'd been quietly paying for, without my name on it, for 2 whole years, because some part of me never stopped belonging to that family, even when I thought they'd stopped belonging to me. Elena found the receipts after the funeral. She cried for an hour. Then she kissed me and said, of course it was you. It was always you. So here's what I've learned, and here's what I want to leave with you tonight. We almost lost everything. Not to sickness, not to distance, not to some villain. We almost lost it to silence. To 2 people who loved each other so much they each decided, alone, to suffer in the dark, so the other one wouldn't have to. We called it protecting each other. It was the closest we ever came to destroying each other. The truth would have hurt, but the silence nearly killed us both. So let me ask you something, and be honest, really honest, with yourself, tonight. Is there someone in your life you're protecting from a truth right now, when what they really need isn't your protection, but your honesty? Don't wait for a wedding, don't wait for an ambulance, don't wait 2 years and a lifetime of what-ifs. Say the true thing, while the people you love are still close enough to hear it, because you never know how many 40-minute miracles you've got left.